Well, it's so great to have the governor here. I am a huge fan, and we have worked together on so many different things. You've been a massive champion for Girls Who Code. I love the story that you always tell about your sister and about technology and how critical the role of coding and technology played in your life. So it's an honor to be here with you.
Thank you for having the brilliance to conceive the whole idea of Girls Who Code, because we in New York are the beneficiaries of a whole generation of young girls who had the chance, because of your efforts, Reshma, to just learn skills in coding. And these are kids whose parents were not engineers. They did not have a role model at home, but they're introduced to it because of the programming that you did. And I saw so many young women, high school and middle school kids, that their eyes are just lighting up because they think, maybe I can do this. So this is a real credit to you.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate it. And in a moment now where it feels like we're dismantling a little bit of women's progress, to know that we have flooded the pipeline with so much talent that we're not going to go back.
That's right.
I think it's
That's right.
And it's a testament to your commitment to it. So listen, we're here to talk about all things moms, paid leave, and childcare. And what I love is your real personal connection to this. You're not going to believe this, but Governor Hochul is New York's first mom governor. Like, how amazing is that? Right? A mother, grandmother, like, you've seen firsthand the cost of diapers and the juggle that you do before you even had your first cup of coffee between managing childcare and getting to the office on time and just negotiating just all of it. And, you know, I think this is why it's such a passion for you. And it's because you recognize what New York families are going through in this moment. So talk to me a little bit about how your personal story, your personal experience as a mother has really played a role in how you're prioritizing these issues as the governor.
A major influence in my life is what I dealt with a long time ago when I first had my children, and there was no childcare. I had to give up a job I absolutely loved on Capitol Hill. I was counsel to Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan, but there was no one to watch my little baby, my son. And we went from both my husband and I working in big law firms to becoming a public servant. He went to work for the Department of Justice, so all of a sudden our incomes went down by half, and then I couldn't get childcare, so then we went down to me not working. So all of a sudden, like, well, we had one good year, we thought we were doing well, and all of a sudden I said, oh my gosh, I can't imagine we're gonna feel so rich when we stop paying for diapers and formula. Like, can you imagine what it's like when we don't have to spend most of our money on, you know, kids' clothes that they outgrow every 3 months. They literally are 3 to 6, 6 to 9, because they're always growing. So I had to pay the bills. I had to figure it out. I had to figure out how I could set up a little home office and find someone to, you know, come in and watch the baby in the afternoon. And I was trying to pretend I had a home office, and oh, that must be that noisy childcare down the hall, because I'm definitely not sitting in my basement with a baby next to me. So it was a different time, but the stress is still there. And this is real. And I know it's real again because that baby I had all those years ago is now a dad himself. He's got a 2-year-old. So I'm watching them struggle. And right now he's a Department of Justice attorney himself in Washington, wondering when the axe is going to fall. They may be living in my basement again. I don't know. But this is the stress they're under. So it's personal to me because I lived it. And when I see moms today, it's like, they didn't ask for inflation. They didn't ask for a pandemic. There's so much more stress on families today than even what I was dealing with. I want to get that right out there. I see that. I feel it. And the cost of everything. I mean, everybody promised that prices are going to come down after the election. Remember that one?
Yep.
I noticed that the price of eggs went up 18% since a certain person got
inaugurated. If you can find them.
Yeah, but 18% increase since Inauguration Day. Okay, I'm watching these things. The prices are not going down, they're going up. So yes, this is a passion of mine, and anything I can do to help families just breathe a little easier and enjoy this time in their lives, because it's gonna go so quickly.
Yeah.
The stresses are great, but you're gonna look back like I do. It's like, I miss when they're little.
Yeah.
And,
I'm so glad you raised this because, you know, as you know, 55% of parents are in debt because of the cost of childcare. It's like the #1 expense for families. You know, we did a bunch of focus groups recently, and these stories of moms across the country, across party lines, basically having to trade off their jobs. You know, women who went to nursing school, loved being a nurse, had a baby, they do the math, and guess what? The math doesn't add up. And so what happens is they have to downshift, right? Or give up their careers just to put food on the table. And so, and this is happening at a time in federal government where we're actually seeing them cut the child tax credit, cut the, the child care tax deduction, right? Make it actually do nothing about the promises and the commitments that they made to actually reduce the cost of child care, but actually make it more expensive. Being a mother is out of reach, which is why we have such massive depopulation concerns. People don't want to have a baby anymore. They can't afford it.
They don't know how they can do it.
How can you do it? So what is the role of state governments?
It's significant. If you have a state that feels responsible for the well-being of its constituents, its people, then you take a major role. When I first became governor 3 years ago, I announced an initiative to bring $7 billion to childcare. No one had ever come anywhere close to that. And what does this look like? It was trying to get places that have been closed down during the pandemic reopened, try to hire more people, try to give people opportunities to get the training. So there's 1,000 different ways we figured it out. And I have really smart people like Emily Cater here who's been working with me to try to solve this. But we have to focus on it. And I've also gone around the state literally for a decade telling employers, you have a role to play. I remember I was invited up to a major semiconductor manufacturer in upstate New York. And it was Women's History Month. I'm really popular during Women's History Month, right? You've got to have the woman, lieutenant governor. So he said, we have 3,000 employees. And I said, you have very few women in this. And he says, I know, I don't know what to do. I said, I have the answer for you. Build an on-site child care facility and people will be banging down the door to work here. Not just moms, but dads who want to check in on the little one during their breaks. I said, it'd be a game changer. And we were able to do something that is extraordinary. Micron, which we were able to land, working hard with the Biden administration and Senator Schumer, I was able to get them to come to New York. 50,000 new jobs. And guess what? They're building a child care center on site so they can attract more women and moms and dads and these stuff. So when I have leverage at the state level, you want tax dollars to assist you. I want you to come. This is great. I want you to expand. This is great. But I need you to help further my public policy objectives as well. You're going to build sustainable buildings. We're going to have, everything's going to be LEED certified. We're going to make sure we're protecting the environment. And you're going to take care of the workforce, which means building childcare, finding a way to get around childcare challenges. So we have to start putting it, we never talk about this, putting it back on employers.
That's right.
You want to be competitive. You want to have the best talent. And you also just give more flexibility, like we have in New York. And what we've mandated is the paid leave time, because it is a short-term investment in an individual. You give them what they need to be able to take the time and be able to come back. They could be with you for a long time instead of rapid turnover. And it's a cost saver for employers as well. So they need to think about it. It's in their strategic interest to take care of this huge challenge. And the cost, it's higher than a public college education now. I mean, you have 2 children. This is the rest of the state. New York City is even off the charts. But $21,000 to take care of an infant, 2 kids, like you're making a minimum wage job.
Yep.
It does not add up.
Doesn't add up.
It just, you cannot make the math work out. And that's a real, it's sad to me as a mom, but also as governor, I'm more motivated to try and solve this.
Yeah, and the unconscionable choices. I mean, 50% of New Yorkers live in childcare deserts.
That's right.
One of the most interesting. We have some of our funders here from Robin Hood and some incredible professors here at Columbia have done incredible research of just showing also and some of this is really we need more innovation because oftentimes it's lower income women that are concentrated in neighborhoods which happen to be in childcare deserts, and there's an open storefront right next door, right, and so there's real solutions. But I think the business piece of Jen Klein's here. She obviously did so much work on this with CHIPS, really, and so much innovation that came out of the Biden administration through her leadership and really organizing kind of businesses, making sure we're uplifting the voice of childcare workers so we do not leave them behind, really, in solving our childcare crisis.
But you look at sometimes it's even a matter of zoning. Especially right after the pandemic, we saw a high number of vacancies in Midtown, for example.
Yeah.
And I'm always thinking let's put housing in there. What else can we do with this vacant space? It turned out it's coming back as commercial, which is good, but a couple of years ago we didn't know that. I said, why aren't we building childcare facilities here? Well, it turns out they only allow, because of zoning, to be on the first floor.
That's right.
And I said, why is that? Well, because if there's a fire, et cetera. Okay, I'm thinking a lot of these kids live in high rises. Right?
Right.
Sometimes you just want to inject a little common sense. We could be having so much more space available to us, probably less expensive to not be on that ground prime real estate of a commercial building. Why can't we do it upstairs? Why can't we do something else? So sometimes you just have to push and ask the question, say, why can't we do this? I'm always the one who says, if you tell me this is the way it is because it's always been done that way, that is the wrong answer.
That's right.
Because I'm going to say, we're going to do it differently.
And Governor, why can't we do this? Not because it's the right thing to do, but because it makes economic sense. You know, we have a national business coalition on childcare. You know, over 200 businesses. We did a report with BCG that showed that you get a 425% return when you offer childcare benefits. So, like, this is like, to me, it's like almost like economic misfeasance, right? If you actually don't solve the childcare crisis. So,
absolutely, absolutely. And like I said, I've been talking about it for over a decade, using my life's experiences, talking about businesses and how they can be more involved. I do believe that they were an important part of this.
Yeah.
Businesses can help us solve this.
They absolutely can. So we just listened to a panel, incredible research by McKinsey here about how paid leave can really unlock this enormous opportunity and this enormous economic opportunity. Because what the research really showed is the impact is going to be on women's labor market participation. You know, when we don't solve the paid leave paradox, but we have so much more work to do, right? In making families aware that it exists, you know, reducing the complexity. And you have been just an incredible champion of paid leave. I just cannot tell you the moms across New York State who just are so grateful to you,
Thank you.
You know, and your leadership. And what have you learned, you know what I mean, as you've talked to working families about paid leave and about paid leave policy and why it's so critical, what we can do?
Well, first of all, our law in the state of New York applied only to private sector businesses. It didn't apply to the government workforce. So when I first became governor, I instituted that there'd be 4 months paid leave for all people who work for the state capitol. I think I sparked a baby boom. Seriously, it's so incredible that everybody's having children, and I felt really good about that.
Yes.
I guess they're not sitting at their job, okay, but they'll come back. They'll come back. And we're finally starting to see a lot of men are doing it as well. And this has to happen. This has to happen for a variety of reasons. And as I mentioned, I'm a grandma now. And my daughter-in-law was able to get 4 months paid leave. She was home the first 4 months. My son picked up the next 4 months, totally on his own. And that shouldn't be such a big accomplishment. He did not make a big deal about it, but he was a little bit of an outlier.
Right.
And he was so proud of it. I mean, it just made him a different person. And the connection he has with that little girl is extraordinary. So I want people to know, just at a human level, if you're blessed to have, you know, 2 parents and they can help out, it also saves you about 8 months of childcare.
That's right.
My daughter is expecting her first child this summer. And I said, how are you going to figure this out, sweetie? Can I help you in any way? And she says, I'm taking the first 4 months. You know, Matt's taking the second 4 months, so we won't need anybody till probably next January. So that's something that's a gift to families. When you have a place, if you work in a state where you get maybe just a few weeks off or it's unpaid, like, you're right back to work. And it's a choice people make. You might want to go right back to work. I mean, for your own sanity or whatever, that's fine. But it's all about giving people options. But I think there's been a recognition that, you know, both partners
That's right.
need to step up.
And that was
not just one or the other.
That's right. And I think the most interesting part of this report is that men are the ticket to increasing access to paid leave. And one of the things I think we've all learned I certainly learned this in doing this report and doing this work on paid leave, is that, you know, to me, like, the durability of a policy depends on people taking advantage of it.
That's right.
And you see what's happening in Washington right now with DOGE, cut. And what's being cut are the things that they think that people aren't actually using.
Right.
You know, and so they will cut paid leave. They will cut Medicare and Medicaid if those policies actually don't have high durability because they don't have a high number of people using it. So it's up to us to make sure that we tell everybody that they're available and they get those $10,000, which is the difference between, you know, poverty and actually, you know, funding your childcare.
I think they're going to cut everybody no matter what. That's just, you know, the Medicaid vote last night, you know, the fact that they passed a budget that is going to leave 1.8 million high-need New Yorkers out in the cold if they don't fix that. So
Well, I know you're not going to let that happen.
No, hell no. No, we're up for the fight. This is New York. We're hardwired to fight.
Well, you got an army of people behind you.
Good.
We're going to fight alongside with you. So what makes you even more of an exceptional champion is you're not just championing paid leave, but you're the first in the country to champion paid prenatal leave policy. that gives workers the ability to take paid leave for any pregnancy-related medical appointment or procedure. It's huge. That went into effect in January. What was your goal, and how did that come to you?
Well, I'd also lived the experience. I was fortunate when I worked again for the senator in the Capitol in Washington. I was very pregnant. We work such late nights too, by the way. Sometimes you had to pull all-nighters, and so I'm as big as a house and had to stay overnight on the couch and sleep on the floor and all this because we're always working. But I was just acutely aware that there were other people who weren't able to take the time to go get their appointments. And even in the cities, I go to diners all the time, always talking to people, and I hear stories that have a profound impact on me. And hearing the stories of a woman, I did a roundtable with women, and she says, I can't go to my prenatal visits. Now here we are trying in the state to drive down the unconscionably high infant and maternal mortality rate, especially in Black and brown communities. It is shocking that it is a place like New York that is so rich in bounty and resources, and that we have so many moms dying and babies dying. So the key to this is to make sure that they're getting all their well visits, they're getting all the checkups. And if you're a mom who says, I can't take that time off work because I'm working minimum wage and I get not a dime for that time, you might have to take 2-3 hours, and my children are going to suffer, my other children, because I don't have the paycheck, I'm going to forego those visits. And I said, that's exact opposite of what we need to have happen. I need these moms healthy. I need to have the early warning system when a doctor sees something that you need to be treated for early on, or when the baby needs something. And so it just came to me, and my staff is always looking for new ideas on how to push, how we can do better. So I was shocked to know we're the first in the nation.
Right.
Nobody else thought of this before. So we're the first in the nation starting January 1, and a lot of people are now telling me they're taking advantage of it. I just got a message from someone a couple days ago, and she said, I didn't know I could do this. I mean, I feel much better about my baby and our outcomes. Those are the stories that make you realize why you do what you do.
How did you convince businesses to get on board too? Because oftentimes what we find is, as activists and organizers, that a lot of times these policies are not getting implemented because business doesn't recognize it's not a nice thing to do, it is an economic necessity.
Right. And also, they would just look really bad opposing that. There's just certain things that, we're opposed to moms getting paid so they can have a healthy baby. And again, if they really want to be crass about it, if there's complications, and this is your employee, and now she's got to go for a longer recovery, or if something happens, it could have an impact as well. So we did not get the resistance. Emily might know. Did we get a lot of pushback? Were you surprised that we got? Yeah.
No, I think that exactly as you said, Governor. I think they recognize that while this is new, that it's something that will help employees be happier at work and be safer. And it's an overall cost.
Yeah.
So no, we were pretty happy.
And I'll make them look really bad if they oppose it.
I want to talk about the New York's child tax credit. So in your state address, you promised to vastly increase in New York's child tax credit, doubling or tripling it in many cases. And we know, it's a move that expected to reduce child poverty by state by 8.2%. I just read an article today that in New York, 1 out of 4 is under the poverty line. 1 out of 4. So many of them are children. Why are you focused on the child tax credit, and what impact do you think it's going to have for families?
A profound impact. It really will, because for us to be able, let me step back. When you talk about childhood poverty, nationwide, of the top 5 cities across America, 3 are in New York, and it's not here. It is Rochester, Syracuse, and Buffalo.
Wow.
Of the top 10 zip codes with high poverty, 1 is in the Bronx, and 3 are in Rochester, 3 in Syracuse, 3 in Buffalo. So there's poverty outside the city, which is real, especially in our rural areas. Really high poverty in our rural areas. So what can drive change? And we talked about this. We were going through all of our state-of-state policies. We start in the summer to start coming up with new ideas for the January announcement of what I'm going to do in my State of the State address. And we decided to focus on the theme of, your family is my fight. Your family is my fight. This is personal to me. Your family is personal to me. And how can we start having different outcomes, especially when it comes to poverty? What I found when I first became governor is that we had a child tax credit of $330, but it didn't cover children under the age of 4. children on the age of 4, families got 0. I said, are you out of your mind? That's the most expensive time.
Yeah.
Like that's when, like I said, the diapers, the formula, the little food you had to buy. I said, what are we thinking? So we increased it for the first time. That was a big deal. It was like $330. It's not going to change your lives, right? So we started looking at data, and if we increased it to $1,000 for children under the age of 4 and $500 for older children, our data actually shows that we can decrease poverty rates in New York by 18%.
Wow. Wow.
18% just with that change alone, because that's enough money for a family to just be able to get out from underwater. And it's not just that. I said, you think about the school lunch programs. The kids who get subsidized school lunches or breakfast, there's a lot of stigma with that. You know, actually, I heard this from a Republican senator on Long Island when I did a forum out there a few months ago. He came out to me, and this has shocked me, but beyond anything I'd seen in a long time. He came up to me and says, what you're doing to say the state will pick up the cost of the school lunch program and the school breakfast. So there's no stigma. Nobody will ever know which child needs help, which child's parents can't afford this. He says, I was that child. I was that child, and I never forgot being that one. I used to skip lunch all the time because I didn't want anybody to see that I didn't have enough money to get in the line everybody else did. So we are wiping that out. There'll be no more stigma, but also it comes out to $1,600 per child that you're not spending on lunches or having to buy the groceries to make the sandwiches or the breakfast. So you have 2 kids in school. It's $1,600 per child. You have $1,000 for a child under the age of 4, $500 for a child's school age, and you add all that up plus an inflation rebate, because we collected $3 billion more in sales tax revenues only because of inflation. Because everything went up, we collected more in sales tax. I said, that's not our money. That belongs to the people of New York. Now everybody's got their ideas on how they want to spend it. I can't do it recurring expenses because it won't be there next year.
Yep.
So one shot check back to families. I have been going around to the mall in Queens and at grocery stores and walking around all over saying, how would you feel if you had $500 back in your pocket? And people just look at me with their jaws dropping. I say, I can pay for your groceries. I can help you with your bills. And they just can't believe that there's someone in government who understands it's that basic. We talk about the last election. Everybody says no one heard the voices of the main population. Like they're overlooked, that it was all, talking about saving democracy, but who's saving me? And there was a lot of focus on those who felt they were not listened to. And I want to make sure they knew that I get it. If I can put, and everything I added up now, including our middle class tax cut, we can put $5,000 back in a family's pocket if they've got a few little kids. $5,000 because of what I'm trying to do in my budget. And I need help to get it over the finish line. Everybody has differences of opinion. Let's spend it here, let's spend it. I'm focused on the families. And what I believe is going to make a big difference is getting this done, getting this tax credit in place, and start driving down those numbers that are embarrassing for a great state like New York.
That's right. Let me talk to me about consensus, because one of the things I think that's remarkable about your leadership is your ability to get consensus. We're doing the same thing at Moms First. We've really built this movement because none of these issues are partisan. Affordable childcare is not a partisan issue.
That's right.
Paid leave is not a partisan issue. If we believe in being a nation that is friendly to families, that wants people to thrive, wants people to have children, then we have to make it affordable and possible and aspirational. And right now, let's be honest, it's not. And I think both Democrats and Republicans often say the same thing in terms of what they want. So a lot of people's eyes are on New York State, as like, this is the place to make it happen. What have you learned about building consensus, especially from people who are not from your party?
Well, first of all, Albany has a certain reputation. And
really?
I knew I had to go in there and say, it does not have to be a blood sport. We do not have to be at war with the mayor of New York, for example. There's nothing preordained that says I have to fight with the legislature publicly every day of the week just because I can. And I inherited a culture that was very different, not accustomed to someone who's willing to sit behind the closed doors, work it out over long days. But I don't have to have it spill over to the press to see that we're in conflict right now, because I will get us to a place where we agree. I'll work it out. I'll take time. I'll give you what you need. I need to get this. And some people think that that's not a sign of strength because they're used to a certain model. certain model of what you have to be governor. And I set out to prove that that is not true. And if you look at the accomplishments we've achieved, so the most significant housing package since the 1960s, according to the New York Times, we've done things that people didn't even touch before because they were just too hard. And the harder it is, the more I'm going to lean into it, because if not me, then who? So I have worked very hard. Now, people should not underestimate how hard I'm willing to fight, and I'll punch back hard. But I sat down with the Republican leaders yesterday morning, talked to them about what they would want to have happen. I talked to the Democratic leaders. So people know that I'll fight for our values, especially against Washington. Happy to take on that fight. But if I can get people to yes without a public display of conflict that they've gotten used to, but I think it just calms things down. I'm trying to calm the city down. I want to calm the state down. So people know that they don't have to be caught up in our drama.
That's right.
Like, we're just competent, good people that are looking out for you. Just basic government service. And then you can get on with your lives and not worry about everything that's happening and swirling around. We shouldn't be creating more stress for people.
Yeah.
And I can do that by just being this, I think it comes when you're a mom too, like raising kids. I'm used to kids fighting all the time. And
Oh, I had some fighting this morning in my house.
It's
That's
my
right.
turn to sit in the front seat. How come she's staring at me? I was like that was my piece of pizza. So I've gone through every fight there is. I mean, ultimately, I raised teenagers. So you all look too young to have teenagers if you're a parent. But I mean, teenagers is this next level. But now those teenagers are incredible adults. They say the traits you don't like in a child are wonderful traits in an adult. And I've always said this as well. We're not here to raise kids. We're here to raise adults. And I want them to see me as a mom that can do anything. My son is probably one of the strongest feminists in the country because he saw what I've had to go through, 30 years of elective office. And I wanted him to be that kind of parent for his daughter. And my daughter's going to have a daughter, and I want this to continue on, that you govern with strength, but also it doesn't have to be combative.
That's right.
Unless you're pushed too far.
Yeah, you want to. That's right. I think that's a great lesson about being a sturdy leader. I want to shift gears as we kind of close up here. On the second panel, we'll be hearing from people talking about applying, emerging technology like AI to solving some of these problems. I'm so proud, at Moms First with us building paid leave data AI and being one of the first kind of uses of AI for a public sector benefit.
Yes.
And, we partnered with Sam Altman, a dear friend of mine, to really do this. And you've also been trailblazing on AI. Last year you established the Empire AI Consortium, $400 million, which aims to make New York a global leader in AI for good with, cutting edge technology, cutting edge research and discoveries to solve big problems. This is the core of what, Girls Who Code was built on, and I think it's the core of your ethos in this. And so what have you learned from this investment so far? Are there any applications that surprised you? And is there anything for so many of the young leaders that are in this room that want to solve real big problems and want to be thinking about how could AI actually help them do that? What do you have to say?
This is such an extraordinary time to have access to this incredible technology and innovation. I mean, Columbia is one of the partners. We put together a consortium a year ago. Totally came out of the blue, an idea that I heard at breakfast one day, and someone says, you got a 10% chance of making this happen, but let me describe to you what could happen if we invest money from the state level, bring together academic partners, the powerhouse academic institutions like Columbia, and allow all of them with private sector dollars to have access to the most powerful supercomputer dedicated to AI in the entire country outside of private sector hands. We're the only ones who have this. My friends in government in California wish they had gone ahead with this because they now know we're on the map. And I wanted to be able to democratize AI and not have it just in the hands of the privileged few and have it available to all of our researchers. And young people are just trying to think of how can I solve this problem? And what inspired me was learning there was a young woman at the University of Buffalo, a woman of color, a PhD candidate, and I said, what are you working on? And she says, I'm trying to solve through AI how we can get a more efficient, better foster care system because I came through foster care. I thought, bingo, that's what I'm talking about. Using your life's experiences, making it available to everyone who otherwise would only read about it in the news and never know about it, be able to experience it. And we're making a real difference. I mean, we will find ways to predict weather in a more efficient way than us being slammed with climate change effects that are just wreaking havoc on our state. Or this childcare crisis.
Right.
I mean, let's get people using ways to solve this. What are the answers? And it's so brilliant at this time that people long before all of us tried to solve these, but did not have these tools. And I'm, as governor, putting them in the hands of the people of the state and saying, go for it. Go figure it out and tell me the solutions.
Fantastic. Well, listen, we are so grateful to have you here today. You've inspired so many of us. Lead with your motherhood, I feel like, is such a takeaway. And this idea of being a sturdy leader. And so we are grateful as New Yorkers. I am grateful as a New Yorker to have that in my governor. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.